we would like to hear a little bit about you and tell the audience, give them a little bit of your bio, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Well, I'm an Arizona native, born in Tucson when my folks were going to the University of Arizona. But we moved back to my family's hometown, kind of Prescott, up in the north central part of the state when I was 3. So I only remember one day in Tucson. I was really raised up here in Prescott, very rural, but beautiful, up in the mountains, mile high. Oldest of 7 children. Um, Went to ASU, Arizona State University, got a degree in accounting, met my wife there. We married, moved back here. I ran the family business. Bennett Oil Company is a gasoline and fuel distribution company that my grandparents started in 1938. My parents bought it in the 60s. And then I was the CEO from kind of the mid 80s until the early 2000s. I've also worked with several other companies. I was on the board of directors with Cancer Treatment Centers of America for about 10 years and have been involved in a couple other little companies, most having to do with energy or saving energy and things like that. And then one about growing food with very little water. But all during my business career, I got a degree from ASU in accounting. And so during my business career, I also have been involved in public service. My dad was on the Prescott City Council when I was a teenager, and so after Gene and I moved our family back up here to Prescott, we have 3 children, by the way. They're now grown and have 10 grandchildren. Um, and when we moved back to Prescott, I decided, this is back in '84. I was only 24, 25 years old. I ran for the Prescott City Council. I think I got elected on my parents' and grandparents' good name and served on the city council for 4 years. Then I volunteered for the Chamber of Commerce, board, and ended up being appointed to the State Board of Education by Governor Symington back in the, I guess that would have been the early 90s. I spent 7 years on the State Board of Education, 2 years as president of the board, and then I got elected to the state legislature, the state Senate in 1998. And I served for 8 years in the Senate, 4 years as Senate president. I was in the Senate from '99 essentially to 2007. And then we have term limits in Arizona after being out a year or two. Janet Napolitano, who had been our governor, and I had worked with her closely when I was the Senate president, she resigned, as some may remember, and our Secretary of State. We don't have a lieutenant governor in Arizona. We will in 2026 elections, but Jan Brewer ascended from Secretary of State to governor and appointed me to replace her as Secretary of State. So I served as Secretary of State for Arizona from 2009 to 2015, oversaw 12 statewide elections, more than any other living person. And then in 2022, I got elected back to the Senate. So I'm in the Senate back again. I'm chair of the Education Committee, vice chair of the Elections Committee, and on the Appropriations Committee. But I will not be continuing in the Senate in January. I was primaried by a fella that didn't think I was conservative enough, and he had a lot of money, told a lot of lies, and had Trump's endorsement and knocked me out of the Senate. So I think I'm going to go back to my favorite title, spend more time being Papa.
There you go. Very good. So
Yeah.
you were asked to run the last time you went in the Senate. You were asked to run by Karen Fann, right?
Yes, Karen Fann was our state senator from up in Yavapai County, it's called, and she was president of the Senate, and we were supporting. She was not going to seek re-election after several years in the legislature, and she and I and many others were supporting a lady who was running, whose husband came down with a brain tumor and withdrew at the last moment. And so I got a call from Karen saying, "You got to throw your hat in the ring, and we'll collect 1,200 signatures this weekend," and we did, and I got elected 2 years ago to the Senate. Yes.
All right. Very good. So just to let you know, Ken, this last meeting we had on Thursday night, the last 4 Men in America discussion we pretty much focused on the upcoming election. We've got, what do we got, 11 days now till election day, right?
10 days, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And And so I asked him some questions. The other guy, Paul Fitch, is from Green Valley area. Jeff Ooch lives up in the Tucson area, and I asked them really what was going on with what's the latest on Kerry Lake. We got a little bit of a scoop about some personal problems that Gallegos evidently was involved with, his marriage, etc. And I don't know if that would have any reflection on the race or not, but
I don't think
what
I
are
don't
you
think it's
what are you hearing about Kerry Lake?
well. She appears to be somewhere between 8 and 10 points down in the polls, and that's been pretty consistent for some time.
Right.
The gap has narrowed a little bit in the last maybe few weeks. So I'm not optimistic that she's going to be able to pull that one out, but and I don't think it was bizarre that Reuben divorced his wife, who is now the mayor of Phoenix. She was on the city council of Phoenix at the time, but he filed for divorce about a couple weeks before she had their child.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And so the timing couldn't have been worse from kind of an outsider's perspective. But everything that was revealed in the divorce seems to be, other than the timing of divorcing your wife a few weeks before she has her first child, not much else came out of that I think gives Kerry Lake a big bump or anything,
Yeah.
or pulls Gallego down.
Yeah.
I'm afraid we're going to come up a little short in that U.S. Senate seat, and Arizona will continue to be represented by two Democrat senators. I can't believe that. For decades we were, we had the John Kyles and John McCains and Jeff Flakes and others, and now for a couple cycles now we've been two Democrats. Or one independent when Kristen Sinema went independent.
Yeah. So the Prescott area, where would you put them on the political scale? Conservative?
Oh, very
conservative.
Very conservative. Yeah, very conservative.
Yeah.
Just for the listeners and watchers, Arizona is divided into 30 legislative districts. Because Prescott was the territorial capital of Arizona back in 1864 when Arizona became a capital. Whatever district Prescott's in is always Legislative District 1. And so Legislative District 1 is the second most heavily Republican district in the state. There's another district, District 30, over on the Colorado River area, Lake Havasu City and Bullhead City. They have in that district 3.5 Republicans registered for every one registered Democrat. In this district, LD1, we have 2.5 Republicans registered for every one Democrat. But statewide, it's basically a third. Yeah. Arizona is about 34% Republican, 34% independent, and about 31% Democrat. Yeah. And so even though the state as a whole is a third, Yavapai County, which is the county that Prescott's in, very heavily Republican.
Okay. So this past week, I still get, I'm on David Schweikert's list for his weekly emails, and I don't know if you saw his last week's email about, I know you
No, I didn't.
Well, he sent out a thing about the budget, and I'll tell you the bottom line. We took in, and I bring this up because I told the guys when we talked the other day that you used to do your shoebox presentation for Arizona.
I'm doing it in about an hour. I'm doing it in about an hour for a Republican club that is getting started up here in Northern Arizona is meeting this afternoon. So I was just loading the shoeboxes in my truck to take it down and show them how the Arizona budget works.
Yeah, how ironic is that? So Schweikert's last year, the United States took in $4.92 trillion. That was the income. Okay.
Probably the highest we've ever taken in, by the way.
Ever taken in, the largest ever total. We spent $6.75 trillion. Now, can you imagine that?
No, it's bizarre.
I mean, you just can't get your arms around that. And yet I watched a commercial today where Kamala Harris is going to save us with taxes. She's she's
Yeah.
she's not
Well,
going to tax the middle class, right? And they're
she can't
spending.
run on, yeah, she can't run on her and Joe Biden's record. So she's going to make a bunch of promises for things that she could never accomplish. Or if she did, she would just put the next generation even more in debt. But um, I'm very concerned about our national debt.
Yeah, yeah,
And even as a conservative Republican, I'm concerned, Don. Did you know that the 2024 Republican National uh, Convention and Committee adopted what's not the bylaws, but our platform?
yeah.
The
Platform.
Republican National Platform
Yeah,
does not call for a balanced budget.
yeah. I think I heard that. Yeah, I think I heard that. Yeah, which is not
No, it
good.
calls for a lot of other good things,
Right,
securing the border and being energy
right.
independent and securing our rights and on and on and on. But I find it disheartening that it does not call for the federal government to live within our means.
Yeah,
Uh,
and we talked about that. We talked about the other night the continuing resolution, how we keep falling into that trap, and how we need to get back to our rules of order and the 12 budget. That they're supposed to come up with every year,
right.
and I asked the guys if they'd ever heard of the penny plan. I know you've heard of the penny plan.
Absolutely.
I think you and I have talked about it before, and I don't know if anybody's pushing that anymore or not. I think was that a Ron Paul thing or was that somebody else? Do you
I
remember?
think it was supported by Ron, and
Right.
but
And the idea
yeah,
was the idea was to not spend one penny of your right, one penny less of your new every dollar of your new budget.
yeah, basically a
That was
one
the concept.
percent
1%.
a one
Right.
percent reduction.
Right.
And if you think about your household budget or whatever, could you live on 99% next year from what you had this year?
Right.
Yeah, you'd find a way.
Sure.
And if the federal government would just do the penny plan for about 6 years,
Yeah.
6 years,
Right.
just a 1%, we would have a balanced budget and we'd begin paying off our national debt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that in a $6.7 trillion budget, there's got to be enough, there's more than at least 1% of waste.
Right.
And
Yeah.
um,
There's easily more than 1% of waste.
yeah,
Easily.
absolutely. Which is why we ought to adopt it, because if we just did 1% cuts for about 5 or 6 years, we'd be in a balanced budget situation, and we'd be reducing the national debt instead of adding $2 or $3 trillion to it every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
It took from George Washington to Jimmy Carter before we had accumulated, so almost 200 years before we had accumulated as a country 1 trillion in debt.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of Carter's presidency, we were 1 trillion in debt. Under Reagan, Bush 1, and Clinton, we went from 1 to 5. Under Barack Obama, no, under Bush 2, under George W,
Right. George
we
W.
went from 5 to 10.
Yeah.
So it doubled. It doubled under George W. Bush from 5 trillion to 10 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a new young U.S. senator from Illinois that stood on the floor of the U.S. Senate and just excoriated George W. Bush that he had let the national debt double from 5 trillion to 10 trillion. That was Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Then under Barack Obama, it went from 10 to 20, and under Trump in his first presidency, it went from about 20 to 29, 30.
Yeah.
Now it's at 35 or 4
Yeah.
under Biden and Harris.
Yeah.
And somebody better start doing the penny plan or something, or we're in trouble.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. Somebody's got to take their foot off the gas. But the sad thing is, Ken, and is that we have a function in government called FEMA, right?
Yeah.
Federal Emergency Management Agency, I guess it is. And here
Yeah.
we are. We find out that they're spending money on illegal aliens and supporting illegal alien activity, and it's not there for Americans now. And there's people
No.
in North Carolina and Georgia and Tennessee and I'm back in Florida now, so So we hear a lot of news about all those states in our region, that southeast region, and
Right.
we know what's going on, and they're not. Some of them are not going to get the help that they really need. So it's just, and it's not that it's wonderful to get government help, but in an emergency, I think everybody understands that, right?
Well, when
when
when government tries to be everything to everybody,
Yeah.
all the time,
Right.
then it puts itself in a position where it ends up being unable to take care of the real emergency situations,
Right.
and
Yeah.
yeah, very disheartening to see that our Republican national platform does not call for living within our means at the federal budget level.
Yeah. We all need to work to get that changed. So let me ask you this: what are you hearing, since Arizona right now has I think you have a one seat advantage in the House and the Senate in the state. What is
Yes.
what are you hearing as the outlook for the election?
Yeah, just so that our viewers can kind of get a glimpse of Arizona's legislature. Um, each of the 30 legislative districts has 2 representatives and 1 senator. So 30 districts times 2, there's 60 state representatives in the House. Currently, that's divided 31 Republicans, 29 Democrats,
Right.
1 vote majority.
Right.
In the Senate, there's 30 senators, 16 Republicans, 14 Democrats, again, just a 1 vote majority. In fact, I often tell people the 3 most important numbers in Arizona are 16, 31, and 1. If you want a bill passed, you got to get 16 in the Senate, you got to get 31 in the House, and then the governor.
And the governor.
We have a Democrat governor right now, so there's no way that we override vetoes or do anything like that, which is such a slim majority. But what I'm hearing is that the House, the Democrats are working very, very hard to pick off 1 or 2 seats in each body.
Right.
And if they did 2 in each body, they would then control the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. And Katie bar the doors, because
Oh yeah.
Arizona will not look like Arizona very long.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing that the House might even be able to expand the Republican majority by a vote or 2, maybe 3. Might be able to get to 33, 34 out of the 60. The Senate could go 15-15. There's 3 swing districts very concerned about. One in North Tucson. Justine Wadzak has been the senator, but she defeated Vince Leach 2 years ago, and then Vince Leach won the primary again this year. And the Democrats are really spending money to win that district. There's another district up in the Scottsdale, North Phoenix area, Shauna Bullock. That's a swing district. And then there's a district down in Chandler and Gilbert, mostly Chandler, J.D. Mesnard's district. If they pull off even 1 victory in one of those 3 swing districts, the Senate goes 15-15. And that's only happened 1 time in the history of the state of Arizona, but it happened when I was in the legislature.
So who breaks the tie?
Well, you have to kind of negotiate.
Oh, okay. There's no tie.
A power sharing agreement.
Yeah.
My second 2-year term in the Arizona Senate, which would have been 2001 and 2002, ended up being tied. So the 15 Republicans went to our organizational meeting the next morning to negotiate how we were going to, or to just talk about how we were going to share power with the Democrats. And we didn't get 3 or 4 more minutes into the conversation before one of our Republican senators raised his hand and said, "Oh, by the way, I met with the Democrats last night and I cut a deal with them. I'm going to be the Senate president. I'm going to vote with them on procedural motions, and you guys are kind of probably going to be in the minority." Oh, we wanted to cut the guy's head off. But
man. Who was
the
that?
deal that was Randall Gannett, Senator Randall Gannett from
yeah.
Scottsdale.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
After
incredible.
Now the deal that he did negotiate with the Democrats was that all of the committees, since the since there were 15 Republicans and 15 Democrats, he did negotiate a deal that all the committees were an even number of legislators from each party.
Okay.
So every committee had either 3 and 3 or 4 and 4. Half of the committees were chaired by Republicans with a Democrat vice chair of that committee. The other half of the committees were reversed, a Democrat chair with a Republican vice chair. And both sides had the ability to block the other, because you got to get to 16, and
Yeah.
both had 15.
Oh, yeah.
But if you wanted to pass something, whether it was a bill or the state budget, you had to convince someone from the other, at least one person from the other party, to support your bill or a budget item or something. So
Wow.
everybody was fearing, this total deadlock. But we ended up, basically things had to advance on their merits rather than a numerical advantage that one caucus had over the other.
Okay.
And so we were able to pass the budget 2 years and pass bills, and it wasn't as bad as
It could have been.
a lot of people were afraid it was going to be.
Yeah, I bet they were. So
Yeah.
I know you have limited time, and I know you got to go speak somewhere. So I wanted to let you know what was going on kind of in Florida in this area. There's a big push, and they're putting out some actually false narrative that Rick Scott is in trouble in Florida. He's not. Rick Scott's going to win easily in Florida. And none of our representatives are in any kind of problem. We have about, I think we have like 1 million Republican advantage now in registration in Florida. So
In Arizona, I think it's about 150,000
yeah,
advantage numerically, only about 3% though.
yeah. And we have an amendment on the ballot that would allow abortion through 9 months. Almost no holds barred, almost disregarding whether they're a physician or not, disregarding whether you let the parents know or not. And it's just
We have the same thing in Arizona.
It's just written that way. So that's a big thing here. And we also have an amendment to try to legalize marijuana now. We do have medical marijuana, but a big company is in here from Canada spending. I think they spent $100 million to push this Amendment 3 to legalize marijuana. So DeSantis is totally against both of them, and he's working hard to defeat them both. And right now, the marijuana amendment is losing, but I don't know where. If the Christians come out and vote, we'll defeat Amendment 4, which is the abortion amendment. But that's always believe it or not, that's always kind of a question mark, because Christians are not a big voting bloc, at least not the majority of them.
Well, we're having the same issues. In fact, we already had we've already had medical marijuana and recreational
Right.
marijuana legalized in Arizona.
Yeah.
And we have a very similar thing on the abortion up until kind of the last minute.
Yeah.
No questions up until 24 weeks, which at 24 weeks, the baby is viable outside the womb.
Yeah. Sure.
My daughter is a labor and delivery nurse out here in the Western U.S. And so I hear a lot about babies being delivered all the time. And it's just unthinkable to me what some people want. They want to be able to kill a child right up until the last minute.
Yeah.
And doesn't even, just like it sounds like the Florida thing is, the Arizona one would not even allow parents to be or require parents to be notified if a underage child of theirs sought an abortion.
Yeah, it's awful. So that's about all.
We spent much time rooting for the reversal of Roe v. Wade for 50 some years.
Yeah, and got it back to the states, and now it's being now I would say it's being, they're trying to undermine it, of course.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know why. I know we have people on our side. We have people on pro-life that can't compromise, but I think the majority of people can compromise on it, but they're not going to go for 9 months, up to a 9-month limit.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not either. So we'll pray for both states that they that people do the right thing, right?
Yes.
One of the things I thought was they're running it in Florida. We think because they're going to lose all the other races in the state probably, and we think that they put it on the ballot here. I think the big motivation for the company was money, but I think it's also on there. I think the Democrats believe it'll get more people out to vote for them.
For them, yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll see. Anyway, hey.
Well, in Arizona, I think Trump's gonna. There's some indication that Trump's started to maybe eke out a 1 or 2, 3% advantage. It's been there are polls though that show it, almost a dead heat.
Yeah.
But I think Trump is going to pull out the win in Arizona. Obviously, it's I think we're one of 6 or 7 swing states though, and it then falls to the Nevadas, the Georgias, the North Carolinas, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, the word back here is good too. That he's got a pretty substantial lead in Florida, of course, and particularly down in South Florida in the Cuban population.
Yeah, I heard he's doing real well down in Miami-Dade County, and
that's all opened up for him. So. We are fighting with the feds about illegals on the registered to vote, and so we're trying to purge some people are still trying to purge their lists, and there's also some disagreement. Well, I know our Attorney General Ashley Moody, who I think is going to run for governor when DeSantis is done, she's suing the feds for blocking our investigation of the second Trump assassination. They're keeping Florida where it occurred, down in West Palm Beach. They're keeping those folks down there from investigating the whole thing. So they're blocked. Yeah, it's just sad, this stuff that's going on. So
yeah. Well,
so,
the voters of Arizona in 2004, they approved a ballot proposition that required proof of citizenship and ID at the polls.
Right.
And so
I remember that.
Now there's a group that were kind of grandfathered in. If you were, registered to vote in Arizona before that, then you only showed proof of citizenship when your driver's license comes up for renewal and things like that. You were kind of grandfathered in if you were pre-1996.
Right.
But so we do have good laws in Arizona requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote and ID at the polls to cast a ballot. But you always worry. We just had a recent discovery by Maricopa County that someone who didn't have citizenship somehow got on the voter rolls, has not been voting, but that led to the discovery of a glitch, they're calling it, in the motor vehicle department program, where people over the last 20 some years, as their drivers, if they were part of that grandfathered group that pre-1996, and I think I might be one of the people in this group actually, but I can't get the Secretary of State's office to admit that my name is on the list or not. They're telling everybody, including the press and the public, that we're so focused on the election right now that we will deal with this list of about 200,000 names.
Wow, big crowd. Yeah,
big crowd.
That's a lot.
But again, most of them were registered to vote and had Arizona driver's licenses.
Okay.
To be on the list, you had to have had an Arizona driver's license before 1996.
Okay.
And so I think most of them are probably citizens, but we had a race here in Arizona 2 years ago. Our Attorney General race ended up being decided by about 250 votes out of 2 million.
What was his name? Abe Hamadine or Abe?
Abe Hamadeh, who's now the Republican nominee in one of the congressional districts. So,
is he going
and that's a pretty safe. That's a pretty safe Republican district. So I think he'll end up in.
Is that Debbie? What's her name?
Debbie Lesko to replace Debbie Lesko.
Oh, good. Yeah, he's a good candidate.
So,
great.
So I think, but yeah, we've got. When I was Secretary of State in 2010, we had a statewide ballot proposition that was failing after counting almost 2 million votes, was failing by 126 votes. And we had to recount all 2 million votes. So when you've got statewide races being decided by 100 here or 200
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
making sure that even a few dozen or a few hundred or even, of course, 1,000 or so illegals, not being registered to vote is
Right.
very, very important.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And even if that person doesn't vote, somebody's probably using their ballot.
I hope not. Well, you hope not, but
Yeah, we
that's
hope
one of the
not.
challenges we have.
Well, I'm going to let you go because I know you have pressed for time. And good luck with your shoebox show. We always enjoyed that very much. It was very good. And
Well, I'm going to share it with a group of about 30 young Republicans that are trying to form a group up here in Yavapai County. And
cool.
they must have been really desperate because they asked me to come and speak at their organization, their first organization meeting. But I thought I'd take in fact, I had to change from Kleenex boxes, which are about 4.5 inches tall.
Uh-huh.
But one of the stacks of spending here in Arizona got so high that I couldn't hardly do it in any room
Smaller
because it'd go
boxes.
through the roof. So now I've had to adjust to Amazon shipping boxes, which are only about 2.25 inches tall,
That's
and
funny.
each box represents $1 billion of spending. So, yeah, that's where I'm headed. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you,
Yeah.
albeit virtually, but
No,
look forward to being.
right. You join us on Thursday night, Halloween night. We'll record again at 3:30 your time. And
Okay.
and thanks again, Ken. It's great to see you. And bless your family and bless the audience for tuning in. And we'll see you on next Thursday.
Everybody get out there and vote.
Yeah, everybody vote early. Yes, sir. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Don.